Can we start with, what is your name?
My name is Tom Crowley.
And what business are you running?
I've just started a little gardening business, doing sort of general maintenance as well as some sort of soil works and maybe a bit of permaculture design and tree work and stuff.
What's the name of your business?
It's Minstrel Gardening Services.
Do you have some experience? Have you done this sort of thing before?
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 12 years. I worked as a musician through my 20s, which is where the name comes from. And then in about 2011, I was kind of a bit fed up with moving around so much and wanted to find something I could do to stay still. And yeah, I always liked plants, so I started doing gardening, had my own little business, then I started working for someone else. That was in Scotland. And then yeah, we moved to Australia in 2017, and then I did a bit of work for a local council, which was an eye-opener. Just working, you know, big trees, big open spaces. So I was just working as a casual, and after that I spoke to the boss there and just said, what do I need to get a full-time job like this? And she told me I had to study and get some certificates and a truck license. So yeah, I did all that, and then I worked a bit in conservation because I studied conservation and horticulture. And then yeah, for like hedging firms, doing topiary and stuff. And then eventually I got a job with a council in Adelaide, where I was redesigning all the gardens there, which was great. I did some really interesting projects, managing to do a bit of permaculture. I did a herb spiral and turning logs into wicking beds and turning boats into planter boxes, and working a lot with native plants as well and trees. And then yeah, I did that for 5 years until the end of last year, and then we moved here to Deloraine, and I thought I'd like to have my own business again.
Do you find there are significant differences between, say, Scotland and Deloraine, or Adelaide and South Australia and Deloraine?
It's probably more similar to Scotland here, or England probably. There's a lot of English plants in the towns. Yeah, very different to Adelaide. I struggle with the kind of arid climate that was there, the hot climate. So here is a bit cooler, but the wilderness here is just out of this world. It's like nothing I've seen before. I went up Cornby Bluff on Monday, and the Fagus forest up there was just incredible. It was yeah, the mist seeping through the trees, and just so much moss. It was, yeah, I find it very magical.
You mentioned permaculture before. Is that the sort of garden work that you're sort of looking for, or is there anything in particular?
I'm just happy to work with people to do whatever they want in their garden, but I just try and apply permaculture principles to everything I do. You know, try and make sure every system you set up has more than one function. I'm always looking to learn from people, but I'd like to share some of the knowledge I've learned studying permaculture and soils as well. Just ways we can work with nature and the environment rather than trying to battle against it.
You've had a background in music as well. Do you find being creative in the garden really works for you?
Yeah, I think doing both is a nice balance when you've been indoors playing music. You know, some headphones when you're recording and socialising in that way, usually in the evenings. And then it's a nice balance to be outside and doing work. And yes, I like to do a bit of bush care as well and socialising with people that way. So yeah, I think it's a nice balance. And you often find musicians like doing gardening. It's just, yeah, it's a different way to be creative. You're not perhaps so much in control because you're working with nature and you've got different sort of things governing what you can do. Yeah, they seem to work together really well.
You're doing work with some other gardens locally. Do you have space for more?
Oh, plenty of space for more, yeah. The business is just beginning. Yeah, I'm interested in anyone who wants to get in touch.
Are you looking specifically for work in Deloraine, or will you travel any further?
Yeah, Deloraine and maybe 50 kilometres outside of Deloraine. I'd like to, yeah, not go too far, but if there was a certain project going on that someone wanted help with, I'd be willing to travel a bit further.
Do you have any favourite parts of your own garden?
Yeah, the vegetable garden is always my biggest passion, and just trying to develop different companion planting techniques, like the three sisters we've got over here, with the sweet corn and the beans and the pumpkin. And I also really like the wildflower beds. So I'll just throw 1,000 or whatever mixed seeds of wildflowers in, see what comes up, and instead of planting stuff, you do it the opposite way around, where you're just removing stuff to let things flourish, and it's always a surprise what pops up. And you've got things like this buckwheat, which, it shows you how much nitrogen you've got in your soil by how spindly it grows. And yeah, that's my kind of gardening. But I also like the formal stuff. I appreciate, a good hedge and a nice mowed lawn as well.
You've had experience with topiary in the past,
yeah,
and that sort of formal garden. Would you still do that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to do it as the main thing that I do, but yeah, I learned a lot doing that. It was very challenging, very demanding. It was, everything had to be very, very spot on. It was like some quite high class clients and really big gardens and wealthy areas, and they're paying a lot of money, so they want like really, really good results. So yeah, I like to think both ends of the scale I can manage.
Can you tell us a little bit more about a story of trimming the topiary bushes and the techniques or the requirements that were required?
Yeah, well, everything was done with shears, so it's done by hand, which is quite challenging for the operator, like sort of 10 hours a day leaning over. But it does do a finer cut, and it is a nice sound to hear. Sort of 2 or 3 guys just snip, snip, snip away. There's like the French style that instead of putting a chamfer on the edge of the hedge, it went like a tight point. That was very challenging because it's very unforgiving. It's easy to see if there's any mistake or any deviation in a straight line. Yeah, it is enjoyable. I like to do it. Yeah, I like to include it in the way I do my gardening, but not just as a sole thing.
You had some interesting projects at the council as well. I think you mentioned a boat.
Yeah, so I was so lucky. My boss, there's 2 things. It was Glenelg, so it's quite a touristy place, and it just hadn't had any attention to the garden beds apart from the main square for years, and it was all overgrown, and they hired a new guy who was my boss, who used to work at the Botanic Gardens, and once he saw that I was, I knew what I was doing, he had a lot of confidence in me, and he kind of just said, show me what you can do, and nothing's off limits. So yeah, just get to know these spaces. You'd spend every day going to these spaces, and you just, all of a sudden the picture of a boat would kind of appear. Oh, it's a good spot for that, it's by the coast. And so yeah, found an old boat, bought it. I was really lucky. We were working with a girl who was a trainee, who was an artist, so she painted the boat with nice mandalas, and then I got to use some of my soil techniques, and we put different flowers from every part of the world, from every continent in the world, to kind of represent unity, I guess, and the fact that Australia is this melting pot of people, culture coming from all over. And it was very challenging there because it was right on the coast, and it obviously gets very hot in Adelaide.
Do you have a business in Deloraine that's not your own?
I have to say the music place down the third room back shed music place, so not gardening, that I just think what they're doing down there is great, and the support they've got from the council. It's like the old bus depot, they've turned into a community music space. That's one of the more interesting things I've seen since I've been here. And yeah, there's a lot of community stuff, so not necessarily businesses, like the Seed Library up the road, at Deloraine House, the community house there. Just, yeah, people getting together, sharing ideas, sharing plants and saving these seeds, and the arts, and yeah, there's a lot of things I love about Deloraine.